matches to begin. A thousand banners waving in the sky. Here comes our Lazio, the eagle starts to fly.
Happy Easter to everybody, Laziali all over the world, if you celebrate Easter. Obviously, special episode today because we decided to talk 24 hours later than Lazio-Benevento. A lot of things to talk about. Crazy match, special match, I would say. And as usual, with me, there is Alistair Mackenzie. Happy Easter, Alistair.
Happy Easter to you too, and to everyone else listening. It was for a game against Benevento. It's raised a lot more talking points than perhaps we expected, but it's amazing, really, how much has come out of this match. Most importantly, I suppose the 3 points, which is so crucial, especially with Roma dropping points as well. But lots to get through.
Yes, absolutely. We said it before the match. It was fundamental to win. And, I think it was a very strange match because if you didn't see it and you saw the result at the end of it, you think, okay, 6-2, it was a very easy match for Lazio. No, it wasn't at all. I thought first half really, really bad. Lazio went even down. And then afterwards, after Caicedo scored, the match changed again and it was pretty much easy at the end. Lazio controlled the match and scored pretty much when wanted. But for the first 60-65 minutes, probably it was a very tough match. And this shows that Benevento is not a bad team, especially when they attack. They are pretty good. They simply make too many mistakes. And in Serie A, you cannot allow to make all these mistakes and try to survive. I mean, I think they're pretty much already relegated, but they're not going to be easy to beat because they have nothing to lose now. But, Alistair, I don't know where to start. Shall we start from Lucas Leiva performance?
He's brilliant again, and the best goal he's scored so far for Lazio is an absolutely brilliant goal. But yeah, that's 3-3 now for Lucas. Clearly not a guy when we brought him in that we expected to be providing a lot of goals for us, but he's been doing that a lot, and it has to be said. I mean, we've been praising him quite a lot in recent weeks, but during the last month where things have been pretty difficult for Lazio, not getting good results, Lucas has been one of the players who's really stepped up and used that leadership that we wanted to see from him. He's shown his experience and his quality, and he's been able to provide a really big presence at both ends of the pitch. Just phenomenal again yesterday. The number of interceptions he made was incredible. The goal he scored was incredible, and it's just been really encouraging to see him react in the way he does. We've talked a lot before about the difference between him and Biglia and the fact that he does offer those leadership qualities that perhaps Biglia doesn't. And I think today is a day, or at least yesterday was a day that became so clear, because Biglia was often a player who shied away in difficult circumstances, but Lucas seems to thrive in it, and he was man of the match again.
Yes, I agree. It's funny because when he came, we thought, okay, it's a perfect fit for Lazio because he's very good in getting back the ball, and Lazio can press very high and recover the ball very high position and counter-attack immediately. Then we start looking that he was even a positive leader for this team, and now he's even a scorer, top scorer. 3 goals in the last 3 matches. But I think, as you said correctly, what's flashing is how in the difficult moment, especially in this last 2 months where Lazio is struggling, he has stepped up and performing not only as a leader in the field, but even helping, scoring when Lazio was struggling, when Immobile wasn't performing that well. So, probably, could it be this the best signing for Iglitare? I don't know, because there are a lot of good signings, but for sure, one of the best.
Yeah, definitely think he's right up there. And in terms of value for money as well, I think it was €5 million or around that mark that we paid for him. So in terms of the performances we're getting out of him, the age he's at, the fact he's got more good seasons ahead, I think you're right. I think he's right up there among being one of the best signings. Along with Stefan de Vrij obviously been brilliant closer. There have been a few, but he's definitely right up there.
Yes, and again, probably one of the things that we were missing in the past was a positive leader with that international experience that Lucas Leiva have. That's what Lazio was missing, and Lucas Leiva is very important for that. I still think, and maybe we're going to talk about later, that from now on, to make the final step to compete for the Champions League every year, Lazio need to buy more this type of players, not, how can I put it, surprises like Milinkovic-Savic that are potential stars but have to grow. But we need more players like Lucas Leiva that still have 3-4 years very positive and has international experience, that leadership, that can help you in this tough moment that you will have during the season.
Yeah, and it goes to show, his signing goes to show that you don't always necessarily need to be shelling out huge transfer fees in order to find players who have those qualities, that experience at the top level. You just need to really scour the market for players in certain circumstances, like he was, where he was effectively not in Jurgen Klopp's plans. He wasn't going to get a game at Liverpool, so they were quite happy to take any sort of fee for him. And you find players like that on the market every summer. So that is definitely something I completely agree with in terms of Champions League competitiveness. You do need more than just targeting young players and hoping for the best. Obviously, we've done quite well from that in the past, but you want to see the club bringing in more of these champions. But I think it's having the success of guys like Lucas, and I mentioned Klose before, seeing the success of established guys like that coming to Lazio, having a great time at the club and achieving success, it will surely help the likes of Tare to convince players to come by saying, look, we've got these examples of guys who've thrived here, so it puts us in a strong position in negotiations, hopefully.
And I think at the same time, seeing Lazio performing so well, Lazio is a relative young team, have a lot of youngsters that are promising and have performed well. It's a nice football to see, and is doing well in Europe League. That's another positive vibes for experienced players who come, who are linked to Lazio. You know that you're coming in a young team that has a lot of talent and wants to achieve a result in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, it's just up to a really, really big month now. I mean, April is huge for Lazio, and this is the time to see it through. There are so many positives we can already take from this season. Like you say, a young team that's playing very attractive football, that's what we want to see. But at the end of the day, we need to achieve our goals, and our goals are to finish in the top four and to get as far as we can in the Europa League. So the next 3 or 4 weeks are going to tell us an awful lot about where this Lazio team is. I know I've seen a few fans on social media and so on already writing us off just because of a run of poor form. But that happens during a campaign. It's a long season, and you have ups and downs. So hopefully, finishing the season in the strongest way possible, there's absolutely no reason why we can't get the rewards we deserve for what's happened so far.
And one thing very important, going back to Lazio-Benevento, is that we don't have to forget that Lazio had a lot of players out for this match. Marusic and Patrick played on the wings because Lulic, Lukaku were out, injured, and Lazio didn't have pretty much any options there. And Patrick had to play on his wrong side because his right foot and playing on the left had to all the time go back and cross it with the right foot. So this wasn't an easy match for Lazio, as Radu was out, let's not forget, Wallace was out. So Inzaghi had to change a little bit the starting 11. And so, it's never easy to have to make so many changes for the formation, even if you play against Benevento.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Patrick is a guy who I saw getting a bit of criticism online, but like you say, you have to remember this is a guy who's being played out of position effectively. I mean, he's a very useful guy because he is very versatile, but he's not left-footed. I don't think he's played at left wing-back this season. He's played on the right-hand side, but I don't think he's played on the left. He's been played in a back three. So, you can ask, it's asking a lot of him to go into a game in that role and automatically excel there. I think he did okay. He was in good attacking positions throughout the match. Just defensively, to blame for the second goal certainly, and not always very switched on in that regard. But to be fair, he's not the only person in the Lazio squad who suffers from that problem.
Patrick, I think, as you said, is a very useful player because can play in different positions. So when you are in an emergency situation, you can play him in different positions. But it's not that player that can change the team. So obviously he can be a sub. He can be your go-to player when you struggle. You have a lot of injured players, but obviously cannot be considered a starter, especially if you're competing for the Champions League. So he's useful. As you said, he made a mistake. More than made a mistake, he showed his limits in the second goal of Benevento, where Lombardi dribble past him very well. But yeah, I think one important thing we saw yesterday is that the 3-5-2 of Simone Inzaghi, it's not performing really well when on the wingers doesn't perform really well. And yesterday we had Patrick on one side and Marusic on the other, and they both didn't perform well. And this, for me, is the reason why in the first half Lazio didn't play that well and was pretty much never dangerous, because the wingers, and we saw it at the beginning of the season when Lukaku was entering and changing the match, they were always dribble passing their opponent and was forcing the defenders to go wide and try to catch them. And so Immobile in the box was always one-on-one, and there was Milinkovic coming in, Parolo coming in, and so often we had more players in the box than the defenders, and that was the reason why Lazio was dangerous. Now with Marusic and Patrick playing that bad, and with Luis Alberto and Felipe Anderson, that are not players that tend to fill the box but likes to move outside the box, I think that's the reason why Lazio is not so dangerous as before.
Yeah, I think it was interesting as well to see the change that was made at half-time with Caicedo coming on for Bastos. That made a huge impact. And, I mean, Lazio essentially just went into this ultra-attacking mode to try and put the game to bed. But Caicedo did have, I would say, the best performance he's had for Lazio so far in terms of an impact coming off the bench. I think he was brilliant, and we could really see... we've heard Inzaghi compliment the guy all season long, but we haven't seen too many examples of why, apart from that goal against Sampdoria. But having him up front alongside Immobile, what you were talking about there in terms of not having enough bodies in the box, he solved that problem, and he was linking up the play. He's physical, very difficult for the Benevento defenders to actually get close to him. And in the end scored a very good goal and was integral to the way that Lazio were constructing their attacks. So I think that was really encouraging. And, he's had to work hard to get any sort of chances this season, obviously, because Ciro's been in such good form. But hopefully, towards the end of the campaign, if Caicedo can continue that kind of performance and carry that form into the coming games, that would be the best timing possible to suddenly have him as a real option and a threat up front.
I think Caicedo is the right solution for this moment. When you're playing Felipe Anderson and Luis Alberto, you don't have someone helping Immobile in the box, and Caicedo is the best solution Lazio have now available. I'm not saying he's the best player for doing that, because maybe on the market you can find better player, but he's physical. He's always in the box and looking to score. And if you see on the goal he scored, all the Benevento players were looking for Immobile, and he was pretty alone in the box, and that's something you cannot allow. And Caicedo punished him. And Luis Alberto and Felipe Anderson are very good assessment, but they need to find a target. And if Immobile is marked by two defenders, then it's difficult to give him the ball. But with Caicedo near, that's a solution. Honestly, I was a little bit concerned about the solution Inzaghi did, taking off Bastos and putting Caicedo directly. I was more thinking of a sub like Luis Alberto, Caicedo for Luis Alberto, but in the end, it was dangerous, but it was, it gave Lazio 3 points.
It was a very high-risk strategy, but I think that given the way that the game had gone in the first half, he was clearly aware that Lazio needed to raise the tempo and cause more threats, because when you're playing Benevento at home, it's a game that you should be confident enough of winning. But then when they get their goalkeeper sent off after 7 minutes, you're in absolute dreamland there in terms of looking to win a game. You're basically being asked to. But I think Lazio perhaps relaxed a bit too much after the red card in terms of being too sure of themselves about the result. But after that change was made, there was a real intensity. The tempo was lifted. And I think that tactical change, although it was high risk, and ultimately the second Benevento goal came as a result of the way the defence was set up, I still think it was quite a smart move from Inzaghi, because he was aware that if you throw those kind of players at that Benevento defence as they get tireder in the second half, it's only a matter of time before you score. I don't know if he expected that many goals, 5 goals in the second half, but it certainly did the trick in the end.
Yes, and again, yesterday we saw it, and this happened against Sassuolo, happened against Spal. Lazio scored the first goal, and after 5 minutes allowed the other team to score back. That's something Lazio have to focus on, because they simply relax after scoring, and that's something you cannot allow in Serie A. And you are 1-0 up, 1 man up, and the match should be over. Instead, you allowed Cataldi to score, and yeah, that's a mistake that you can allow, especially if you want to fight for the Champions League spot.
Which was, incidentally, one of the most predictable moments of the season. Cataldi scoring under the Curva Nord.
Absolutely.
A good free kick. I still think Strakosha maybe could have been a bit quicker to get over there, but it was very accurate. And yeah, then obviously the lack of celebration and the kind of gesture of apology to the Curva Nords. Obviously, he fell out with, they fell out with him last season after his celebrations for Genoa. So I thought that was quite nice to see that gesture. I don't know how you'd feel about that as a Benevento fan, but I think it's for the best if the relationship there can be repaired, because whatever you think about him, Danilo Cataldi is a Laziale. He's come through the youth system and the club's very close to his heart. So I don't think he should be judged on something as small and, in my opinion, irrelevant as that moment last season.
I totally agree with you. And yesterday during the match, I was thinking, really, we didn't need Lombardi and Cataldi in the team this year, especially looking how Di Gennaro is performing and how much Nani is playing. I thought they both could be very useful. I don't believe Lombardi would have complained if he had played so little with Lazio. I thought he would still come in and give 100%. And I think it was really important this season for him, because he showed that he can play even in the 3-5-2 system that Inzaghi adopted this season and play as the winger in the midfield. And that was one of the reasons why Inzaghi sent him away, because he wasn't convinced he could play there. And he finished in Benevento doing that exactly position. And we saw it yesterday. He's playing well in that position. He's maybe not very talented, but he runs a lot, he gives everything, and he has skills, so he can become very useful next season, and I hope Lazio can bring him back.
Yeah, well, I mean, for that second goal, he did exactly what we've been wanting Marasic to do for ages now, and he's not really been able to produce, which is, getting down the line, beating your defender, and pulling. The pullback was very accurate. He managed to pick out the pass. Marasic too often gets himself into good positions and then fails to actually deliver when it comes to the final ball. So I think, Lombardi, he definitely has a good opportunity to get back into Inzaghi's plans for next season now that, like you say, he's been able to spend the season in a similar formation to Lazio. I think that's going to benefit both of the players, that Inzaghi can actually watch the footage of those games and see that they've been playing in a similar system. Cataldi, I think he would, if he'd stayed this season, have had similar problems to Murgia and struggled to get in regularly. But yeah, he's a talented player, as he showed, and a good option to have.
Yes, obviously he would have struggled, but if now the point for me is this one: if you want to compete for the Champions League spot, the first 4 position in the league, you have to have a big team. You have to have multiple options. This means that on the bench you have to have valuable subs that you bring in, and the team doesn't lose quality. Obviously, it's not going to be easy, because this means that you have to have good players on the bench that maybe are not going to play that much. But that will help you, especially in this moment of the season where players are tired and you need to make changes to compete on different level. So yes, it's not going to be great for those type of players, but a team like that have to have those type of players. So, Cataldi can still be useful and maybe come in the last 25 minutes and give a rest to Parolo. That, Parolo is the player that runs more during the Serie A. But if you have Cataldi, maybe he has another option and he can rest a little bit more and be more fresh in this part of the season. And same thing, Marusic. I mean, again, yesterday Marusic was terrible. I thought he played much better when he became the right back than when he was playing in midfield. So we were looking for a player like Lukaku who could do the type of thing on the other side. I don't know what happened. He started not really well. No, he started well during the season, and after the injury, he never performed as well as before. So it's disappointing. And maybe Lombardi there could be a better option for Lazio.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think that's definitely a part of the squad that the club's going to have to try and improve and add quality to over the summer. It's quite obvious that that's been the source of a lot of Lazio's problems this season, like you mentioned at the very start of the podcast. So yeah, hopefully they're already looking at that. I mean, probably too expensive perhaps for Lazio, but for example, looking at Kwadwo Asamoah and his potential move to Inter from Juventus, I think it would be nice to see Lazio making moves like that and getting involved in the market quite early to try and get players who are out of contract in the summer. There are going to be some good players out there, so wing-backs are something we're going to need. Lombardi is an option there, but like you said earlier, we want to bring in players of a higher quality, a kind of champion quality, as opposed to be competing at the very top of the league.
Yes, Lombardi is a cheap option, let's call it like that, who can give you values for a low price, let's say like that. And, he's a Laziale, so he's going to give everything every time he's going to play. But let's not forget that this summer, Lotito starts with 40 million euros to spend. This summer, there is no excuse that Lazio have to sell before buying. Lazio has this money, and so finally, I think it's time to buy 2 real good quality players. For me, one target should be another Vice Immobile with that quality, top player, not a Djordjevic just to make a name, but a quality player. We need one in front and one on defense to take place of De Vrij. That's fundamental for this season. And then I think Lazio has to increase the quality of the bench, bring in more players. That's something Tare is very good. I don't know if he wants to bring back Minala, Lombardi or Cataldi, but I think you have to have, especially if you want to compete on all three competition till the end, you have to have a bigger selection available for Inzaghi. You're going to miss some players like Di Gennaro. We can say it wasn't the right move. But, if you miss Di Gennaro and then you get Leiva and Casado, that's perfect. That still makes sense. But this summer, two big targets. Lazio have the money to get them. And really, if you want to compete for the Champions League, you have to get them.
Yeah, and there's no situation I can see here where Inzaghi can't demand that, because if we reach the Champions League, we need to bring in that quality to be competing in it. And if we fail to reach the Champions League, you can just use that argument, look, we didn't have enough strength in depth, we don't have enough quality in depth, and that's the reason that this happened last season, is because everyone was too tired. It's been so obvious really since New Year that as the fixtures have piled up, Lazio's performances have dropped off, and we don't have that quality in depth. So I think there's a very strong argument to be made from Inzaghi to the club hierarchy. Like you say, the budget is there. I hope that Milinkovic-Savic stays, but if he was to leave, we'd have a lot more money in the bank from that. And obviously Stefan De Vrij leaving, one of our highest paid players, so there's a big contract to be able to offer someone as well. So yeah, the means are there, and the club really need to be a bit more ambitious, I suppose, than they usually are.
And as you said, Champions League, you need a better team. But to be honest, Europe League is even tougher because you have more matches, and so Lazio's playing this Thursday. Has at the end, if Lazio go through Europe League till the end, Lazio will play more matches than the team will fight for reach the final of the Champions League. So this tells you that even if you are in the Europe League, and I think at this point we can say that Lazio probably will reach a position, Europe League position, you need a better roster, because you need to make more changes, because especially now in this time of the season where every match is a final, you have to play freshmen all the time, and so that's why you probably need more players, more good players for the Europe League than for the Champions League. Probably for the Champions League you need more stars. For the Europe League you need good players, and I don't think Di Gennaro have proved to be a good player.
Well, he's not really proven to be anything yet because he's not really played with us. I think we do need to improve the overall quality of the squads. You're right, and yeah, it's a good point about the Europa League having an extra round, even more games. It was frustrating for me as well to see during the international break, which is, an opportunity for some of our tireder players to have a bit of a rest. At least I hoped so. And then both of Italy's matches, Immobile and Parolo are starting. And I don't think it was any coincidence we saw the both of them get substituted at the same time yesterday. I found it, obviously, I'm not Italian, so I don't have the same connection to the national team as you do, but I did find it a bit annoying to see them both playing so many minutes for Italy during the international break when they're two of our players who most badly need a rest.
And they were both friendly matches, so, you can give time to rest to them. And the other...
Especially...
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I mean, Parolo, surely Di Biagio, he knows what he's going to get from Parolo now. He's been around for a long time. He doesn't need to be giving Parolo so much time in these friendly games. surely he should be looking to get a younger player into the squad to see what they can do. I didn't really understand that.
No, no, neither do I. And there were rumors that Inzaghi was really upset with the Biagio too for this reason. And the other disappointing thing was that Lazio had finally a break, and we were hoping to get more people back. Instead, we lost Radu, Lulic, Wallace, etc. So, instead of recovering people, we lost them. So that was a little bit bizarre and concerning.
Typical.
Yeah. And talking about defense, we're talking every time, Lazio defense is not very good, Lazio defenders are making mistakes. Yeah, but Lazio defenders are the defense that have scored more goals in Serie A. With the Vrij goal yesterday, they're 13. So, they're not a bad scoring.
Yeah, and don't forget Bastos, our man up front, the natural goal scorer. Yeah, it's true. It's I think a lot of hard work has gone into set pieces on the training grounds. I think that's clear from how many assists Alberto's got this season from set pieces, and also from how many goals are being scored by the defenders. Not always from set pieces, but the majority of the time. And that's such a useful thing to have in your armoury, really, is the ability to take advantage of those opportunities. And yeah, another one yesterday with De Vrij, like you say. I think he's on 5 goals now this season, which for a centre-back is a really good return.
Yeah, Ibrahim Albeiti on Twitter asked, we need good defenders next season. Every season we have the problem in defenders. Well, obviously, we will have a big hole to fill because De Vrij is leaving. And again, yesterday he showed how important it is. I didn't think Bastos played that bad yesterday. I don't think... It was weird because, well, the first goal was a nice set piece from Cataldi. I don't think the defenders have nothing to blame. On the second, it was more a singular mistake of Patrick and a good skill of Lombardi. So I don't think the defense played badly yesterday. There are some mistakes from the single players that Lazio's paying a lot. Said this, I believe, anyway, even if we don't get to the Champions League spot, I think Lazio need to buy 2 good defenders. One for sure that has to be a starter to replace De Vrij, and another one, that can come in and give a break to the other players.
Yeah, I think something that, going back to the conversation about the transfer market from earlier, I think this is a position that actually Lazio really need to look to be getting reliable champion players in, because first of all, De Vrij's leaving and he's a reliable top player, and we need to replace him with someone of similar quality. But number 2, Lazio have had defensive problems for years now. I mean, it's been a long time that's been the main criticism of the team at the end of the season. And so what's kept happening is that every summer we've been bringing in more centre-backs. I mean, if you look at the number of guys who have come through in recent years, from Ciani to Gentileschi and now Bastos and Wallace, and all these guys are error-prone and have come in for similar criticism. So I think the only way of ending that string of unpredictable signings is to start signing guys who we know are reliable in Serie A, to bring in guys from within the league. That, for me, would be a lot more reassuring. More expensive, yes, but more reassuring than taking in guys who we don't know an awful lot about. It will occasionally work, but let's be honest, how often has that worked for Lazio in recent years, bringing in centre-backs from foreign leagues? It's been more missed than hit.
And one point is that the best central defender we had was Piava Diaz. They were both experienced defenders. One was considered one of the best of the Brazilian league, and he showed it after a couple of months that he had to adapt to the Serie A. And Piava was an experienced player, and that we had 3 good years with Piava and Diaz. So that shows you that that's the type of player you need to buy. Obviously, you can have hit and miss if you go and try players like Ramos or Wallace, etc. they are good in some occasion, but Ramos need to grow. He's very young. Wall has shown that he can play really well in some matches and then make a terrible mistakes. You need to buy players like Diaz. And this season you have no excuse because you have the money and you already sold De Vrij, so you don't have to wait to see if he stays or if he leaves. So I hope Tari is already pointing that. And I don't know, guys. Reply me on Twitter. I think Lazio have to buy a very good defender and a very good striker. Midfield we are quite fine. So with those 40 million euros, Lazio have to focus on those two spots.
I would say two very good defenders personally. Talking about Biava and Diaz, to think that was Lazio's last consistently reliable defensive partnership, and you're talking about Eddie Reyes' team. That's 7 years ago or so now. That entire time since then, more or less, it's been an issue trying to find reliable centre backs. So I think if we're sticking with the back three, Radu has shown that he's reliable in that position this season. But if we're losing Stefan de Vrij and we are unsure about Wallace and Bastos, which has been a problem all season, then I think we need two guys of high quality to come in over the summer to join Radu in that defence, and then we can continue to integrate Luis Felipe into the side and give him more time. But I think it's too soon to be able to say Luis Felipe is the answer in the Champions League season.
He has all the rest of the season to prove it. So, he has time. I still think that if you bring two good defenders, then he still can compete for a spot. And
so much rotation.
Yeah, especially because you're going to have a match during the week, so you have to rotate the defense. So I think he's going to have plenty of time to play. So again, I think really this summer Tare and Lotito have no excuse to buy two big players with experience. As we said last time, there have been rumors of Bastuber. I'm not sure he's the right player, and I said those rumors are not really true. But yeah, that's the example. A player who has big experience, a little bit like Lucas Leiva, that maybe needs to prove himself and try to find back a space with his national team. That could be probably the best solution, the best type of player we are looking for.
Yeah, I think you're right. Even if Badstuber is not exactly the answer, he's exactly the right kind of profile of player, I think, to be looking for.
The biggest problem is that there are not so many good central defenders these days. So I think there's the risk you're going to pay him a lot. But still, Lazio has a lot of money this summer, so there's no excuse on that point.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so.
Well, we're going to see. Anyway, I didn't think Bastos played that bad. I can understand why he came out, because playing with four defenders, you have to get rid of one of them. And, he chose Bastos because Ramos and De Vrij have played more together.
Yeah, I think also potentially saw Benevento as a good opportunity for Bastos to regain some confidence. I doubt he will have done if he was substituted at half-time. But yeah, it's good to see him being integrated back into the team. Speaking of people being integrated back into the team, though, I found it very interesting to see at the end of the game that Felipe Anderson was the guy who was given the captain's armband after the final two substitutions. Because it's been such a transformative month or so for him. If you think back to where he was after the Genoa game, when he was dropped for the trip to Napoli, and it looked like that was going to snowball into a big drama, which we really didn't need. But, fast forward 5 or 6 weeks, and there he is with the captain's armband on for the first time. And I saw his statistics in the last, I think, 8 games. He's provided, 7 assists and 3 goals, or I might not be exactly right, but it's along in that ballpark. So he's really bounced back from that in quite an impressive fashion. And I think he deserves perhaps more credit than he's been given.
He can change the match in a couple of minutes. I thought in the first half he was in and out. He made that amazing assist to Ciro Immobile. But then the rest of the first half, he was pretty invisible. So that's the biggest problem with Felipe Anderson. He can switch on and out in the same match. So he has to improve there. But he's a player that can change you the matches. And I think Inzaghi coped with him very well. And even there, Lucas Leiva was the first that talked to him after he had that burst with the manager. And that shows you the leadership of Leiva. I like that Felipe Anderson was the captain when Mobile and Parolo came out. And I still think he can do a lot. And let's not forget that he's probably the fresh player Lazio have, because he started playing in December this season. So he pretty much didn't play the first 4 or 5 months of the season. So he should be the one that has more energy. And that's why I believe he could be fundamental for the end of the season.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Inzaghi after the game yesterday as well. He was asked if there's a chance of seeing Alberto, Anderson and Milinkovic-Savic on the pitch at the same time, and he said no. On Thursday he's going to rotate and one of them is going to drop out, and whoever drops out will be on the pitch during the second half off the bench. So I think he has decided that it's not possible for him to find a balance with all three of those guys on the pitch at the same time. But I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. The ability to, talked about this before, but the ability to have three such talented midfielders, and any one of those three who you can bring off the bench will have the ability to change the game and give the opposition defence a lot to think about. So it'll be interesting to see what he does on Thursday.
Yeah, and if you see Serie A, you see that the subs are often changing the match. So having good solution from the bench is very useful for a Serie A team, because they can come in, be more fresh, and change the match like Casado did, and Zeko did for Roma, etc. So these are resources very useful, and so having Milinkovic-Savic on the bench, or Felipe Anderson, or Luis Alberto, it's very good for a team like Lazio. So I agree, having them all together in the same match from the start is quite complicated, but it's a good option to have them. And the fact they are different type of players, that it's quite good, because team have to match different skills. Milinkovic-Savic is more a player that goes in the box, is physical, he's very good with a header. Felipe Anderson is more fast. Luis Alberto is a great assist man. So, there are different skills that can give you the chance to vary during the match. So I agree with Simone Inzaghi. I don't think they can play together.
Yeah, I mean, it would be asking a lot of Lucas.
Yes.
To all those guys on the pitch at the same time.
The other thing important he said, he was asked, because obviously we said that he changed formation in the second half and switched from a 3-line defense to a 4-line defense. So a journalist asked him, Lazio was playing much better in the second half. So is there a chance that Lazio change from the 3-5-2 to a 4-line defense and a different solution? And Inzaghi said no. And he said the reason why is that playing twice during the week, you don't have enough time to make those changes. He said last year, without the Europe League, we had a full week to prepare the match, and so we were able to switch from the 3 defenders to the 4-1, etc. Now he hasn't got the time to do it. I understand his point of view, because pretty much what happens playing in Europe League is, well, you have a day off, then you have a day to recover, you have a day to train, and then a day to prepare the match. So you basically have only one match, one training to prepare the match, while before you had 2 or 3. So this is a big difference, and this is probably the reason why Inzaghi doesn't want to switch. But I still think during the match, Lazio should try different solution.
Yeah, I think he's right to do that. To be honest, I think I was having a discussion about this yesterday. Actually, it's impossible for a coach to deviate too much from their overall tactical blueprint at this stage of the season, because, like Inzaghi said, if you've got a game every 3 or 4 days, which Lazio now do. I think we've got 7 games this month, or 7 games in 3 weeks. When do you have time to try and implement or change things? You don't, because you have a game, you might be travelling back, the players have to rest, you maybe have 1 training session, 1.5 sessions, and then you're on the pitch again. So it wouldn't make sense for me to be trying to change the formation at this stage of the season. Perhaps it's a bit different in-game. If you're in need of a goal, for example, it was quite an attacking move, as we've already discussed, against Benevento, but you also have the assurances against Benevento where they have 10 men, so it was a slightly different situation. I just think he's far better served looking for different ways of his side kind of creating and linking up together in the system that he's used all season. I think perhaps the one criticism you could have would be that last season he'd coached his side to be capable of switching between various formations during games, and that's not something he's continued to do this season. And I think that's something I would like to see from Lazio, is to be a bit more adaptable than they have been. Especially
because you have those type of players, like, Maruzic didn't play very well yesterday, but he's a player that can adapt in a different position. Patrick, again, is another type of player. You have Lulic, you have Lukaku, you have Radu, you have a lot of those type of players that can change position during the match without, losing skills, etc. So you have those type of players to do it. I can understand that the movements are different, but I think during the match you can do it, and you should be doing it to create more problems to the other teams. So, there are still 9 finals, like they call it. So there's still plenty of time to try and do a little bit of changes during the match. Going back to Twitter, we have probably one of the weirdest questions we received recently from Alexander Mikkelsen. Let's try some new question that you're not used to answer to. Who would you rather have a beer at a bar with of the current squad? Who was the coolest haircut of the current squad, and who is the next big Serie A trainer who formally made an impact as a Lazio player? Al?
Oh. Right, well, should we do these one at a time?
Yep. The beer.
The beer. Well, the beer is an easy answer. It's obviously Bastos. I would love to go for a beer with Bastos and try and convince him to change position to his natural role as a striker. I think he'd be great fun in the bar. I don't know about you.
I was thinking more Parolo Leiva. I think Parolo is a very funny guy, and Leiva would be nice to talk to him. I think he's very interesting.
Very different answers.
Yeah, as you can imagine. Who has the coolest haircut? Well, that's
Lukaku.
difficult.
Lukaku, surely. Oh, it's amazing. If I could pull that off, I would be doing that.
My wife would never allow me, so no. I don't know. Maybe I'm more type of guy like Strakosha haircut. Simple.
Simple.
Yeah, and who's the next big Serie A trainer who formally made an impact as a player at Lazio?
Well, there's quite a few contenders in that regard. I know they've not been doing too well recently, but Massimo Odo has definitely shown a lot of potential with Pescara and now Udinese. He started really well at Udinese, and now they've lost 6 in a row, so it's not going so well for him now. But he's a young coach who's already made it to Serie A with a good team, so I think he's one to keep an eye on. Trying to think of who else. I think someone came up on my radar recently was Matias Almeida, who he was in charge of River Plate for a while. I think he's in Mexico now, but he won the Mexican League last year with Guadalajara. Be interesting if he ever comes over to Europe to see how he does. But he's from that generation of the Scudetto winning team, and basically anyone in that team is worth keeping an eye on in terms of coaching, because so many of them have turned out to be pretty good at it. So Him and Alessandro Nesta, I suppose, is the other one to keep an eye on. There's plenty of them.
I would say Sergio Conceição. He did pretty much.
Oh yeah,
He did
Yeah,
well
yeah.
in France. So, yeah, and he said that he would love to train Lazio in the future. So, and he looks to be a very good manager, and I think a little bit like Simone Inzaghi, he has that. How can I say it? That not only that leadership, but he's quite cool in talking with the players. He still think as a player, and that's something that works really well with talented players. So he's someone I would be looking to see if he can come to Lazio in the future. And one a little bit different, Rocky. He's managing, I think, the Allievi of Lazio now, and he said it quite well. He said he enjoyed training the kids, but let's see if he has another career like Simone Inzaghi, starting from the youngest and then reaching the first squad of Lazio. That could be interesting.
And don't forget Paolo Di Canio.
Yeah.
What a manager.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot. It's amazing how many of these ex-players have gone on to actually coach at a very good level, though. I mean, obviously, there's the coaching world is littered with ex-players, but particularly ex-Lazio players. I think there's a lot of them out there.
Yes, someone was saying, I don't remember who, said that Ericsson formation, it was pretty much the players on the field that was deciding how to play. Obviously Mancini had a lot to say, but it looks like they were talking a lot to decide how to play, how to change position during the match, and after a couple of years, you can understand they pretty much all become managers, so you can understand why that team was really good.
I did a few years ago. I went and met Fabio Liverani when he was at Leyton Orient at the time. Which turned out to be a complete disaster, and he was there for about 3 months, and I think I spoke to him about 2 weeks before he was sacked, so it was my fault probably.
As usual.
But it was quite interesting speaking to him. That was I think he'd been at Genoa very briefly, and then that was his first job, which seemed like a bit of a strange one to take, to be honest, because that club is a bit of a disaster. But yeah, he at the time, I was talking after we'd finished the interview, I was saying I was a Lazio fan and asking if he's interested in going back, and he said he'd love to come back to the club and so on. And yeah, now he is at Lecce, I think. So Lecce, I think Serie C at the moment, are they trying to come back up? So
Lega Pro now.
I don't know. Possibly another one to keep an eye out for. He's another very young coach, so maybe another one to track.
Yes, it could be. To be honest, Lazio has so many. The dream would be Diego Simeone. Obviously, we didn't talk about it, but he could be very interesting to have back on Lazio bench. It would be as Verona as well, obviously. So plenty of options, honestly, with Lazio, without forgetting Alessandro Nesta again. So many options for Lazio, so many. But Thursday there's Europe League, very tough match, very complicated. The good thing is that the doctor yesterday said that he believes that all the player that was out yesterday would be able to recover for Thursday match. Now I'm not sure if they will be able to play or they can only be called for the match, but they should be able to be there. So probably we're gonna see Lulic back, Lukaku back, Wallace, Radu. So probably Lazio will play with a good team on this very important match. Another thing I wanted to talk with you is Inzaghi yesterday after the match. They asked him, is it more easier reaching the Champions League through the Serie A or through the Europe League? And he said, well, obviously we are in the quarterfinals of the Europe League, so this means that the final it's close. So probably it would be easier going through the Europe League, but we are fifth. We are close to the fourth spot, so we won't give up the Campionato, the Serie A. We still believe we can do it even through the league. What's your thought about that? I thought it was encouraging
Disagree.
in a way that, he feel Lazio could achieve it both way, and a little bit surprising.
Yeah, it's surprising in terms of being the answer to the question. I think he's wrong about that. I think the best chance Lazio have of reaching the Champions League has to be through Serie A, because it's not knockout football. And like you say, we're still very close to the top four. Even if we're not in it at the moment, it's actually still in our own hands because we have to play Inter and Roma. So if you're looking at the odds of qualifying for Champions League one way or the other, I would definitely say Serie A is 100% the more likely way of getting into it. But yeah, it's definitely encouraging to hear him taking the Europa League seriously. And if he does feel that way, I'm quite relieved, because I would be really annoyed to see him get to this stage of the tournament and not take it seriously, or not put out the strongest team possible. Because, I mean, this is exciting. It's April and Lazio are still in Europe and we're about to go into a quarter-final. This game is playing to get into a European semi-final for the first time in 17 years or so maybe longer than that. And yeah, I mean that's something that we're not used to in recent years, is having any sort of success in Europe. So ideally we're doing both, but I do disagree with him in terms of it being likelier.
I believe the biggest challenge is seeing which top team goes through in the next stage, because obviously there are big teams that can, that are better than Lazio at the moment, so it would be complicated to beat them. Of course, if you play them in the final, that's different. On the other side, I think, Roma Inter without any matches, Inter without any European competition has a big advantage. They are 1 point ahead and one match to recover, so the gap could be wider, and so I think it's going to be very difficult both way. I think losing all those matches in the last month complicated a lot the situation for Lazio in the Serie A. So I think it's very difficult. You said yes, Lazio has to play against Inter and Roma, but Lazio has the derby, Fiorentina, Sampdoria, Torino, Atalanta, Crotone, and Inter. It's a very tough calendar, so it's not going to be very easy for Lazio to win a lot of matches from now to the end of the year. So it could be really complicated to reach the fourth spot.
It is, yeah, but at the same time, you have to remember that we have already played Juve and Napoli twice. So even though the rest of the teams we're up against are, like you say, those are some of the better teams below us in the league, we don't have any of those really, really big teams left, apart from the guys directly around us. Compared to Roma, who still have to play Juventus, I can't remember off the top of my head who Inter have got left. I can check if you give me a second.
Well, they have the derby for sure.
They've got Juventus still to come. So just Juventus and the derby. Yeah. So I mean, Roma and Inter still have to play Juventus, which we've already done twice. So that is quite encouraging as well if you're looking at the run-in. I think all those fixtures you mentioned, they are all tricky games, and I'd put Crotone into that as well, because they're still fighting hard to get relegation. And actually, by the end of the season, what you're really wanting is to play a team like Bologna, who have nothing to play for. So it's a very tough run-in, but that's what we're in it for. It's all those games. Really, Lazio should be looking to win and should be favourites to win.
Yes, as you were saying, there's the big chance that you can arrive to Lazio-Atalanta and Crotone-Lazio, where both of the team have nothing to fight for, and maybe even Torino. So that could be the best hope for Lazio. But, you have to see. I think if Lazio plays like they did in the first half against Benevento, there are no chances. But if Lazio play like they did in the second half and in the other matches, I think Lazio have a chance to make it. But to be honest, and I said it before, last month have decreased a lot of chances of Lazio to reaching the Champions League. So through the Serie A, at least this is my thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly last month wasn't great. The loss to Juventus so late on was tough, especially having played pretty well in that game. And then, to drop 4 points in games against Cagliari and Bologna is immensely frustrating. But, to be able to go through a tough run of form like that and come out of it and still be within touching distance is pretty encouraging. It's going to be close. It's a very tough run-in, but Inter and Roma will be talking about this in the same way that we are, really. I mean, Inter have the advantage of not having any European football, so they'll be focused entirely on the Serie A and on the Champions League qualification. But, Roma have got Barcelona coming up, so they've got plenty of distractions.
Yes. And Wednesday there's the Milan Derby that we hope finish with a draw. Right?
I don't know. I think, personally, I prefer Milan to win it. I know it would bring them a bit closer to that group, but to be honest, I think if we're targeting qualifying for the Champions League, if we allow Milan to catch us, we've already lost that race anyway. So I think we need to regard it as being a 3-team race and hope for those other two to drop points at every possibility. And yes, so I think it would suit Lazio best for Inter to lose that.
Okay, well, we're going to see what happens. Probably next Sunday after Lazio-Udinese, we'll have a clearer idea of the situation. And we're going to have a podcast after the Europe League match, right? You're available, as usual.
As always, I will be there.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening us. Remember, you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, on Spreaker, follow us on our YouTube channel, and on our social network, Twitter, Facebook. And talk to you Thursday after Lazio Salzburg. And always Forza Lazio. Thank you, Alistair.
Cheers. See you next time.
Bye.